Hello and welcome. I'm so excited to pop in today and chat with you about what I think is a very, very important topic that we all really are affected by all over the world, no matter who you are, what you do, where you live. It's something so many of us experience on a day in, day out basis. So thanks so much for popping in today. So I'd love to hear your comments or your feedback, whether you're listening live or watching the recording at a later time. I would love if you would share this with your friends that might be interested in this topic, that you think that might be supported by learning more about, not more about stress, because we know a lot about stress, but maybe this new perspective that I want to share with you guys. So essentially, when we look at our society, and raise your hand or give me a like if you've had or you've done this yourself. And just because of the system with Be Live, I can't see if you're on. So if you want to give me a hello or a heads up that you're there so that I can acknowledge you. So let me know if you've caught yourself or if you hear yourself saying this, whether once or regularly. It's okay. I'm just stressed. Right. And my big question is, when did becoming stressed become okay? You know, and I think it's probably the biggest disservice that we've ever done to ourselves in our society is making stress an okay thing. And I think one of the reasons and one of the things that I see a lot in the belief structure is if you're not stressed, then you're not working hard enough. You must be lazy. You've got it made in the shade. And hey, Jess, thanks for popping in. So what are the things that are really make it okay for us to say those things? It's okay. I'm just stressed. Because if you realize it, or if we're talking about stress today, stress is your body's indicator. It's letting you know something is wrong. And when we say it's okay, I'm just stressed, we're subconsciously telling our bodies the fact that you don't feel good doesn't matter. And often I get this question so much. And for years, I did my best to answer it. And I developed a lot of different answers, lot of techniques and coping mechanisms. And the question that I get asked a lot is, what can I do to deal with my stress? And I think that is the number one problem, is that we need to stop dealing with our stress. We need to stop coping with our stress. And instead, we need to start overcoming our stress. Because finding new tools and techniques and doing more meditation and doing more self-care is not addressing the problem. Let me give you a real world experience. You're driving in your car and your car starts making some noise. That's your body saying, I'm stressed out. So of course, maybe your short-term coping mechanism will be, I'm going to turn my radio up so I can't hear the noise. But you know what? Sooner or later, you're going to want to address the cause or the issue that is making that racket in your noise. Because if you don't, you'll find yourself sooner or later stuck on the side of a highway. And we're doing the same things to our bodies. So there's 3 types of stress that I want you to be aware of. There's mental stress, there's emotional stress, and then there's physical stress. And they all kind of flow in the same way. So I'll give you kind of an example as to how this might roll out and why it follows this thread. It's first, your mind recognizes that whatever it is, whether it's workload, whether it's the type of food you ate, whether it's the lack of exercise or something in your life is out of balance. And so let's just use work for an example, because that seems to be the number one cause of stress for a lot of people. As soon as your mind recognizes or realizes that you have more to do than you can meet for your deadline, you start to mentally think, oh no, how am I going to get this all done? And you start to become mentally stressed. And as soon as you have a mental stress or a thought or a realization that what you have committed to, signed up for, what you have on your plate is not reasonable, in regards to what you can physically accomplish, for example, then that thought triggers an emotional response. you start to actually feel stressed. You have all of the emotions that come with it. Oh, can you guys still hear me? I hear Michelle said, where did I go? I don't know, I'm still here. You guys see me if you want to give me some feedback here. Is that older? Well, I'm getting some responses. I'm getting some thumbs up. So I'm going to assume you can still see me because I can still see myself. So let's start over. So you have a thought and then you have a feeling, right? You have a feeling of that stress, that overwhelm, the feeling of, oh my God, I have no idea how I'm going to get all of this stuff done by X amount of time. So then you're totally stressed out by your experience. And what then happens is your body responds to that emotion. This is how our bodies work. First, we have the thought, then we have the feeling of fear. It's usually some sort of fear, and then fear or overwhelm, or sometimes it's kind of a mix of the two. And then our body responds physically to that emotional response. So we start to heat up, stress. We get maybe our skin turns, flares up and gets red. We start to kind of panic, shake. It starts to affect our nervous system. Some people, when they get stressed, they start to have stomach issues, right? So, and your own personal, unique recipe of how you experience stress will be completely, like really unique to you, but it starts and it's always in the same thread. You have the thought or the realization of what the deal is, right? So I said I could do that, but now I realize I'm overbooked, or, I don't know how I'm going to pay my mortgage this month, or maybe, like you have the thought of, oh my God, there's something wrong. And this is on the conscious level. Then on the subconscious level, your body's like, oh my God, I'm hungry. I'm missing magnesium. I'm short of this. So on the subconscious level, your body's having the same dialogue, if you will, is I'm not rested enough. So the resources that you have and the resources that you need don't match up. So whether you're having a conscious awareness or a subconscious awareness. Oh, cool. Cindy says I'm describing German new medicine. Right on. Well, I didn't know that. So that's wonderful. It's always fun when I've been working with people and I've been developing things and then I find out that it's like a thing. So it's always super encouraging. So the mind, the emotion, and then the physical. And that's really how I look at when I work with people with stress is one of the two main components is I give people coping mechanisms and I show them how to deal with stress, but I really don't like to stop there, because for me, that does a disservice if we stop there, because I'm just giving you a Band-Aid. I'm giving you an Advil or Tylenol. I'm giving you something to just get by, which is not answering the question or the statement or the indicator from your body and saying something is wrong, pay attention to me. So that is what stress is. And then it starts to really progress. It's stress, then it's overwhelm, then it's anxiety, then it's a panic attack, then it's maybe you have a nervous breakdown or a burnout or a depression, right? It really escalates all the way into disease and disorder. So if we can address with our stress first, and we can stop using the statement, it's okay, I'm just stressed, we'll do ourselves a huge favor. And we stop looking for how can I deal with my stress, and instead start having the conversation and focusing on overcoming the stress, identifying what is it that I have too much of or I lack of that is causing stress in the first place. So I really like to dive into, instead of dealing with the situation, let's find out what's happening that's causing the stress in the first place. Because otherwise you're not really getting anywhere. You're not achieving anything. You're just getting by. And getting by doesn't allow you to improve your life. It doesn't allow you to expand your experiences. It just keeps you on that friggin' treadmill that we all complain about. So two main sources that you'll notice that your stress will come from, and one of the main ones, so just so that we're clear, is internal. Because even though your boss or your husband or your kid might be pissing you off and it's stressing you out, at the end of the day, you always get to choose whether or not whatever's happening outside of you is going to affect you on a mental, on an emotional, and on a physical way. So you can have a child that's having a meltdown in the middle of the grocery store, and whether or not you're going to get upset will be up to you. And whether or not you have the coping mechanisms to support you in keeping a peaceful internal state of being while your child is having a breakdown or a meltdown will be kind of a reflection of how well you deal with unexpected or unwanted situations. And that's really a whole other webcast itself. And one of the external influences can really be more so your environment. And you can look at that environment in a lot of different ways. Maybe you're not getting the proper nutrition. Maybe the food you're eating has an additive that your body doesn't like. Maybe the job that you have has a workload that's not reasonable or realistic for what you can physically accomplish. And then you have this internal expectation on yourself then that, well, I should be able to achieve all of these things if I'm really worthy, if I'm a really great employee, that I should be able to meet these deadlines. Well, maybe those deadlines, maybe the skill set that you have, maybe that it's not a good fit. So we tend to assume a lot of the times that stress is an external thing, but more so it's an external trigger that that kind of amplifies an internal problem. So that's something that I really like to dive into. So if I can give you that word of advice is, I want you to pay attention to the moment that you get stressed. So I want you to do a few things. So this is kind of your takeaway, and I want you to go and just start to be aware of your environment, because awareness is the first step to creating change and making different choices. And it's kind of like anything else. When that weird noise happens in your car and you're not really sure what it is, the first thing your mechanic needs to do, well, the first thing that needs to happen is you need to bring it to a mechanic, unless you're super clever. But the first thing that needs to do before it can be fixed is you need to identify what the issue is. And so the same thing applies to everything else in life. So I want you to ask yourself, when's the last time I felt completely at peace? And another great question you can ask yourself is, what percentage of the time do I feel at peace? And if you're looking at anything between or under 80% of the time, then you really need to evaluate that. So if you're not feeling in a peaceful state for at least 80% of the time and better, then what's happening is that your body is in a fight, flight, or fright response, if you will. It's in a little bit of a survival mode because it's stressed on some level. And it means that your gears aren't quite working well, you don't have enough oil, you're revving your engine too hard, you're creating damage to yourself on a very subtle level on a regular basis that accumulates and create bigger problems. And then you wonder, where did this problem come from? I was just stressed. So is everybody else, right? And so when we start to think being stressed and everyone else is stressed, and that's an okay way to live, that's when we really start to doing a disservice to ourselves. So I want you to ask yourself those questions: is what percentage of the time do I feel at peace? When's the last time I felt in a completely peaceful state? And what percentage of time do I spend feeling this is 0% stress. So there's totally spa level peace. And then there's 0 to 100% stress, right? So I want you, a little bit of stress counts as you being in a stress state. So I want to make that very, very clear. I'm just a little bit stressed is still a stressful state. It's still wearing you down on some level. So what percentage are you completely at peace? And what percentage do you live in a state experience? Do you wake up stressed? And I ask you this because for many, many years, I worked on the stock market for some of you who don't know. And so it was a normal, cool thing to be, it was who's more stressed? It was almost a contest. And we've almost, especially in some different realms, there's well, I'm more stressed than you, and you're, so you mustn't be working hard enough if you're not stressed. Or we have this really weird relationship with stress where we've made it okay, we've normalized it. And if there's anything I can get across in this short chat, is stress is not normal. Stress is your body's indication that something is not working. And if you really want to do yourself a favor, is you should be asking the question as to why am I stressed out, and what is my body trying to tell me, and what can I do about it? So by simply becoming aware of when you're in a state of peace and when you're in a state of stress, then you can start to identify what happened that I went from peaceful state to stressful state. And as I was saying before, I used to wake up every morning with an instant, as soon as I would wake up, I would have this overwhelming wave of dread and overwhelm. That's how I would wake up. I woke up like that for a number of years, and I would just push through because I was like, well, everyone else is having a hard day. I've got all these really great things. What do I have to be stressed out about? But my body was really trying to let me know that where I was and what I was doing was not supportive to me. It wasn't creating joy in my life, and that I needed to make a really big change. So I hope that you found this information supportive. If you want to talk to me directly about what's stressing you out in your life, I really, really would love to help you figure out exactly what it is that's causing the stress. So instead of just dealing with it, we can actually do something about it. And then stress can be something of the past. And stress can be something that you identify, you see coming down the road, so you already know what to do about it before it slaps you in the face. So if you'd like to chat with me about whatever is stressing you out specifically, I would love to give you some great advice, tips, or whatever you need, essentially, to be quite honest, to help you to identify what is it in your neurology, in your mindset, in the mental, because that's where it begins. So let's look at what is happening on the mental that is triggering the physical, that is triggering the mental that is triggering the feelings, which is triggering the physical, that it's causing a stressful experience in your life. So we can nip that in the bud. We can make some changes in a real applicable way. And then you can actually see that express itself in its reality, something that I do all the time. And so if you're done coping and you're ready to overcome and really move past that okayness of stress, then I'll invite you to check out my link in the comments. So thanks very much for popping in, and I'll talk to you soon. And go ahead, and I would love it if you had questions that come up through this webcast, feel free to pop them in the comments, and I'd love to get back to you. Bye for now.